7. Scary true horror stories from people who found the unexplainable. There are things in this world that we simply can't explain. Sometimes they come at night. Sometimes they hide in the corners of your everyday life. And sometimes they appear just for a second to remind you that reality isn't as solid as it seems. These are 7 true stories from real people who stumbled into something strange, terrifying, and completely unexplainable. Are you ready to hear what happens when reality breaks? Story 1. The Woman in the Mirror. A young woman named Kelsey was staying in a historic inn during a solo trip through the Pacific Northwest. The room was charming, vintage furniture, hardwood floors, and a large antique mirror above the fireplace. On her 3rd night, Kelsey awoke to the sound of footsteps. She looked around. Nothing. Then she glanced at the mirror. In the reflection, a woman stood near the window. Pale skin, dark eyes, wearing a white nightgown. Kelsey turned around. No one was there. When she looked back at the mirror, the woman was now standing behind her. Kelsey screamed. She left the inn immediately and drove through the night. The hotel owner later told her, "You stayed in the Eleanor room, didn't you? No one's used that mirror since." The Screaming Field. In rural Ohio, a group of teenagers camped near an old cornfield rumored to be cursed. Around 2 a.m., they heard what sounded like a child crying in the distance. Thinking someone was hurt, they followed the sound into the field. Then the crying stopped, and the screaming started. Loud, agonizing, like dozens of voices overlapping in pain. They ran, but couldn't find their way out. The field twisted and turned unnaturally. Finally, after what felt like hours, they stumbled back to their tents. The next morning, their GPS showed they'd never left the edge of the field. But their watches, each read a different time, and their phone recordings, full of static. Except one whispered voice, "Don't follow the sound." The man who knew her name. A woman named Dana was walking home late one night. A man in a dark coat approached her from the opposite side of the street. He looked at her and smiled. "Dana," he said, "be careful crossing the street tomorrow. Please." Frightened, she asked how he knew her name, but the man simply turned and walked into the alley. The next day, Dana nearly stepped into traffic when a car sped through a red light. She froze, heart pounding, realizing the man's warning saved her life. She went to the police. No one matched the description. The alley he entered had no exit. Dana moved cities. But sometimes when she's about to make a dangerous mistake, she swears she still hears his voice. The door in the woods. 2 hikers in Oregon discovered something strange. A door, standing upright, alone, in the middle of the forest. No walls, no hinges, just a door. It had a handle. One of them, curious, opened it. They saw nothing but darkness beyond, like an endless void. Not even the trees on the other side were visible. Then a whisper came from inside the door. "Come closer." They slammed it shut. But when they turned to leave, the forest had changed. Trees twisted in impossible directions. The trail was gone. Hours later, they found their way back. The door vanished. They never went hiking again. The girl at the bus stop. Tom was waiting at a bus stop after work, just past midnight. That's when he saw a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, sitting on the bench. She was barefoot, wearing a thin dress, crying. Concerned, Tom sat next to her and asked if she was okay. She looked up at him, eyes wide. "I missed my bus, but it's okay. The next one's coming." There were no buses scheduled that late. Tom looked around to find someone, anyone, but the street was empty. When he turned back, the girl was gone. Just gone. He checked security footage later with a city worker. Tom was sitting alone on the bench the entire time. The radio in the wall. Ben and Laura had just moved into an old home from the 1940s. Renovations were slow, but one day, as they knocked out a wall in the living room, they heard something strange. A radio, playing music from inside the wall. It wasn't plugged in. It wasn't even visible. But the faint sound of 1940s jazz floated out like it was playing in another room. Then a voice came through. "We're still here." They froze. Ben opened the wall entirely. Nothing inside. Just dust and wires. They moved out 2 weeks later, when the music began to play every night at 2:11 a.m. sharp, even with the power shut off. The face in the storm. During a thunderstorm in Kansas, a man named Chris was driving home through heavy rain. Lightning lit up the road every few seconds. Then, in one of those flashes, he saw a face in his rearview mirror, not behind him. Inside the mirror, the face was screaming, mouth open wide, eyes empty. The next flash, gone. But Chris couldn't stop shaking. When he got home, his wife noticed a large handprint on the inside of the back window. But the car had been locked the whole time, and ever since that night, Lightning always brings the same face, screaming silently whenever he passes a mirror. Some things just don't have answers. Some moments break the logic we cling to. And when you're alone, in the dark, and something unexplainable happens, do you try to reason with it? Or do you just run? Because the truth is, sometimes there is no explanation, only the silence after the scream.